now. Hopefully it works.
So Steve, that was my sweet friend. She was one of the MOPS moms at my team, which is why I had a pretty good idea she was not going to be a teenage volunteer. I mean, I would have loved her. She would have brought an energy that we don't have.
All right. Thank you guys for coming tonight. I know I think all of you guys have been through the rodeo already, are pretty familiar. Again, there are a couple of changes that are going on. But thank you again for coming. I think I've had the privilege of speaking to everybody here in a one-on-one personal situation. And it's been great to get to know you guys. And we're excited. We are excited to work with you. But first, let's just introduce ourselves. I know you've seen this face around, unfortunately, but Leah came last week. So this is Leah Me. You wanted to say a quick word?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of you who I've seen your names on different things, but I haven't put it with a face yet. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you a little better. But you know, it's going to be a process of us all getting to know each other. But it was exciting to me to be out there looking out on everyone, because I was like, God is really teaching me lately that the kingdom is built piece by piece. And so often I want like instant gratification. I want to see big things or whatever, but like what we're doing, even in this training right now, is a part of the overall kingdom of the Most High God. And that's awesome. And I just don't want us to ever lose sight, even in these little moments that feel maybe mundane. We're talking about all sorts of different things, but like this is about the glory of the name of Christ, even you being in this room right now and us being in these positions now. So I'm just excited to see piece by piece how God uses us. Like we get to be a part of that. He doesn't need us, but we get to do it. So that's awesome. But I'd love to open us with prayer, just this specific time. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, you are worthy of praise and honor and glory and might. You have given us way more than we deserve. And we thank you, first of all, for the gift of salvation and for the gift of your Son, Father. Thank you that it's no longer we who live, but Christ lives in us. I thank you that you've called us out of darkness into your marvelous light. And I thank you that we have a mission in this life now, because we get to be used by you to see people's lives change, to see other people come into light, to see other people come into freedom. So thank you. We are entirely dependent on you. And Lord, even though we don't see you, we know you, we love you. And Lord, we ask that you would lead us with immense wisdom and unity for the sake of your name. Amen.
Amen. Before we talk a little bit more, it'd be great to just say hi, share your name, and just one thing you're excited about for student ministries this year. I'll just start. So I'm Tom. I'm excited to work with you guys. And don't worry, that's not just, I really am. This is one of the things that excited me about this position, to be able to partner with adults and not be alone in this. And so I'm really excited for that.
Well, I'm Leah. And I'm excited to see real discipleship happen.
I'm Maddie. I've been with this will be my 4th year with my girls, so I'm just really excited to see them now that they've been through their 1st year of high school, and just see how it's amazing how far they've come, but just to really continue to grow with them and see how they're maturing and changing.
I'm Patty Uter, and probably like all of you, I'm so excited that we have Tom and Leah, because we've had so many changes for many years, and so it's really nice to have some permanency for us and for our students, and for my small group girls who are seniors. I'm excited excited to see, they've matured a lot, but it's also gonna be really good for them.
I'm Kelly Thompson. I'm excited, I'm one of those weird people that actually likes change. So I'm kind of excited to kind of mix it up a little bit, that the students kind of, they know what to expect, and switching that up a little bit kind of gets their attention. So I'm excited that, that they're inspired by it, that they enjoy something different. And I hadn't thought of this until Maddie said it, but I guess I am excited to see, I have the 9th grade girls, so this is their first year in high school, and I'm anxious to see some transition, some additional maturity. Coming out of-
Alright, let's start praying right now.
Yeah, migrating out of, middle school and into high school is a big change, so.
I'm Dave Steiner, and I'm excited to see what's going to be new this year. I feel like there's a lot of different opportunities. You just mentioned change, but I'm just excited to see the newness of all this.
Rick Webster, I work with Underground AM, been doing that for 4 or 5 years, I think at least 4 or 5 years. I'm excited for the new format, the opportunity for young people to be in worship, for adults to be more involved in learning opportunities. I'm excited to come out of the underground for at least a little bit. And go underground. So come out of the basement and be up there near adults and things like that. So a radical. At least until that's right, come out of the dark into the light. I wasn't gonna go there, but until the construction is done, then I guess we'll go down again.
I'm Scott Thompson, Kelly. I'm excited for something a little different than I've been able to be excited for, which is I've been doing this for a while, and this is the first year that one of my kids will actually be undergrad. So I'm really excited to see what that looks like.
That's weird.
Sorry.
No, it's just making them feel old. That's all.
It just makes a lot of us feel old.
We've all been there before.
I'm Nina Graves, and you guys have already mentioned a lot of things I'm excited about, but I'm really excited and so grateful that we have started construction in the basement and in the lower level. You know, that was, you know, a lot of hard work trying to raise funds for that, and I'm just so grateful that we're there now, and that this space can become something that is welcoming for our students and for the rest of our community. Now maybe adults during the week will actually want to use this space, which I'm really super excited about. But what mostly I'm really excited just to see how, like, our girls, I'm with Maddie, how they have matured, and also, like, I came in November of last year, and so they were they've had a couple of different people, and they weren't really, you know, buying it that I was there and to stay. And so, and I still feel like when they see me, I'm like, who are you again? So I'm excited to grow that relationship.
I'm Steve Pearson, and I am excited about having all 4 of my boys.
I knew he'd take mine.
We could just say it together.
And then that we are going to start our year off tomorrow. So,
Oh, come on, you can't leave it at that.
alright, so we're taking all the 11th graders to Busch Gardens tomorrow.
Oh, fun.
All right, I'm Wendy Pearson, and I'm excited,
Sorry.
it's okay.
I'll sleep on the couch.
That's
tonight.
Say ditto.
Actually, you know what, I'll do the opposite side. I'm excited that we got my 8th grader over there to at least attend the volunteer training, and he has agreed, not signed in blood, he has agreed to try it out for 4 weeks before making a decision about, and he's interested, like, he's one of those kids who, like, you gotta get him there before he's gonna have any fun. You guys, so keep in mind that those kids are in your groups, like, meaning that they don't wanna show up, they're absolutely convinced that they are going to have an awful time until they get there.
That's the best. That's the best when you drag them there, like, trust me, and then you see they're having a great time.
I'm John Morgan, and I'm excited that Brendan found somebody.
There we go.
thought for sure someone was gonna take it. Also, kind of the way kids, years go, they all kind of get 1 year older. Our seniors are gone, but it replenishes itself, and I'm excited about kind of the new replenishment, even though we're kind of looking for some kind of stability, because we miss that too, but it's also nice to see kind of a second chance every year, you know, and I'm excited about that. I feel like, so much is happening at this church right now where we really had the grief of losing David, and everybody's leaving the church with the staff and so forth. But I think we've seen that, hey, it's not over. We've got this new life and this new people, and I'm excited about that. And it's kind of brought us out of the depths, I think.
Well, it's not fun to be last.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, she's.
Oh, she.
Are you excited about that?
You don't
I'm
count.
always excited.
Well, I think, maybe I look upon it a little bit differently because I started working with the youth in '85. So that's just a few years ago, right? And,
That was a good year, Marna.
Right. And we've known this one since she was little, and Scott since he was little, and Rick when they had their first baby, and Beth was first married, and so, I'm glad that there's gonna be a youth director. And a help for the kids, cause they have had a lot of different changes, and I think, change is great, but it was changing almost, yearly for them. And so I'm really thrilled that you're here. But also, I really kind of enjoy, nurturing you guys.
We enjoy it. Thank you.
Because, we can be your parents, and so it's fun working with. Or grandparents. Speak for yourself.
I need to raise my allowance, please.
So I told Tom that I would substitute this year because Michelle Rahal let me get by with murder. But I love the kids, and I love you all, and I love to go work with Rick and Scott. And, anyway, and I don't know if Tom's gonna let me get by with us so much, but we're here to be supportive of you as much as possible.
That's not how we saw it, just for clarity.
I know.
Well, thank you for sharing. Yes, Leah and I are very excited about this upcoming year, and hopefully many, many years to come. Right? There's no guarantee, but that's our hope, that we can be in this for the long haul. We didn't come here just to be here 1 year and then be like, peace. So a big part of what we want to do long term is to fulfill this vision that we've come up with, and it's on the top here. We've been talking a lot, but this is something that we've come together and formed recently. And so this is something that you'll hear a lot, and I hope that you'll say it a lot to other people, to students, to live it out. And it's that the student ministries exist to glorify God by fostering a safe and patient community that regularly preaches the gospel of Jesus Christ, so that anyone involved in student ministries can fall in love with Jesus Christ and follow him the rest of their days. That's our goal. And one encounter that I had with a youth student when I first started youth ministry really made an impact on me and led me to form this idea, this vision for youth, which is he and I are talking, and he's a very smart kid. He's going to Johns Hopkins this fall, and he's like, Tom, I have all these questions, but every time I ask my parents, they just say, hey, it's in the Bible. It's just what it is. And he never felt safe. He never felt understood. And he felt like there was just this impatience that he felt from his parents. But not only that, I think just from the general population, whenever he asked hard questions, whenever he expressed doubts in the faith. But we want to foster a community where our students can say, hey, I really don't know about this. Can I believe in the Bible? What is this? Is this true? And to let them ask those questions. And we might not have all the answers. Most likely we don't. But we allow them to say, hey, we hear you. And we struggle with some of those questions as well. And let's try to get to the bottom of this together. And at the heart of it is we want to give them the gospel of Jesus Christ. Because that's what draws us to where we are today. That's what brings us. It's what Christ has done and is doing and will do. And so we want to constantly preach the gospel in our actions and in word. So that, again, the students are not falling in love with an idea or an organization, but with the living Lord. And that's going to keep them believing after high school. Right? And we can be a big part of it by showing them what it looks like to love Jesus, and then also answering again those questions and walking alongside them, so that as we follow the Lord, they know what it looks like and they follow the Lord. So that's our hope. And Leah and I are here to support you guys. Again, we're not here to tell you guys what to do, but we're here to support you guys, equip you guys, and together fulfill this vision for the students and for this church. So that's why we're so excited to be able to partner with you guys in this great endeavor. Any questions? No, all right, thank you. Now I'm going to turn to Michelle. Are you?
That's you.
Or is it Melissa?
No, you're first.
When will we get the gospel project books?
We have them.
Right
Oh, okay.
now, well, not now, a few minutes.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
So slight pause.
But I'm not, okay, but I'm
Do you want me to
just
hand
talking child protection policy.
Yes.
Okay, well, so my name's Michelle, the Assistant Director of Operations. I've been here for 8 years. In the youth program, left for a little while, came back. Most of you have seen me talk about child protection policy for years as well. And I think we only have a couple that have heard me talk about it yet, maybe? If you have heard me talk about it. I think the biggest thing that I want to talk about tonight, really, I'm not going to go into the details of how we work with youth and, the 2-adult policy and, I won't go into that, but the biggest thing is incident reporting, and that's what Melissa wanted me to talk to you about, because I think that's the sticky wicket within student ministries. You never know when you're supposed to report something. You also don't always know when to talk to the parent. And I think the biggest thing is, and kind of what I was saying to, this will be short too, by the way. What I was saying to Tom and to Melissa is I think there's a tipping point. And the first thing is when you start with your group at the beginning of every year, you need to let them know that if they, you want to have that trust factor with your youth, but if they are sharing something with you that's endangering them, you have to share that with their parent. And you need to be transparent and let them know that at the beginning of the year, so that when you get to January and they tell you something really grave, you know right away, well, automatically I've got to talk to your parent. But I think the biggest and first step is trying to get them to talk to their parent. Don't be the one that has to go directly to the parent. Have the youth go and encourage them to be accountable and help them in framing how they want to talk to their parent about the issue. I'm gonna try to think of a couple of examples, and I'm sorry I'm not standing up. I've been in the car all day and I've got some serious vertigo, so I'm gonna sit through my presentation, so I'll try to talk a little louder. Sometimes we have situations where it's just a youth is sharing something with another youth, and it might not even be about them, but it's just something that they've got going on in their group or in their school. And that's not necessarily something that you're gonna go and tell the parent, but it might be something enough, like if you know there's a group in the school and your kids, meaning your youth, your small group, might be hanging out with that group, and that group is constantly, drinking at parties or something, maybe that's the point where it's not gonna be you telling the parent, but you need to try to encourage them to tell the parent, but you might wanna write down an incident report. And I know that we don't write down incident reports for those types of things. When we think about an incident report, we think about somebody just got hit in the head, or fell down the stairs, or we broke the CPP policy and we, forgot to have 2 adults and there was only one and we were talking after hours. It also should be those situations when a youth is reporting something to you, or you hear something in your small group setting. Those things are confidential and they stay with me. Sometimes they go out to your ministry manager, but you should be having that conversation with your ministry manager before it's even hitting my desk. Because, I mean, they need to be in constant communication with you about the things that are going on in the youth, but we need to track those things, because if it ever comes back, and this is part that, I'm sorry to be all, HR on you for a minute, but if we do get wind of something like that and we're not documenting it and something were to happen, it can be a liability to us as well. So in trying to protect your youth, you also need to be protecting yourself and the church. And I would recommend, those are the situations when it's just in conversation, things that are coming up, just write them down. They get purged, I don't keep them forever. We just hang on to them, we have a retention policy. But this is kind of a difference from where we've gone before, I think, with incident reporting. We've never really talked about having to write down the situations that happen. But we've come into a couple of different situations over the past 2 years where things that were mentioned in youth group came to fruition, and it was an issue that happened that we ended up having to talk to parent, the youth, we had staff involved, and I can't go into any more of that, but there's just a reason to document. And I know that seems harsh, because you can't just document somebody's life experiences, but to the extent possible, putting down just the basic facts will be really helpful to us in the long term for the school year. Does that make sense? I know I'm kind of rambling again.
Just to clarify, you're talking about extracurricular, so this is not at a church function?
No, I'm talking about here, things that happen at VPC sponsored events.
Okay.
Or if they happen to be off-site and you're with your group, I would argue that it's a VPC sponsored event. No, it should be things here. If
So
you
it's a
get,
church organized activity, it is not
But it is-
something you hear that is.
now that I am saying, I think you should, and I would recommend, if it were egregious enough, now I know that it's a gray area, but you guys work in student ministries, everything is a gray area here. So I recommend, if it's egregious enough and you find out that it's going on outside of the church, you still need to document it.
That's what I'm asking. 'Cause
Yes.
I think that's new.
That would be,
Okay.
again, don't start documenting everything.
Yeah,
I'm
I
talking
know.
about, you're breaking the law, the
I'm
kids
saying
breaking.
it out loud,
Yeah,
make sure I heard you right. That's.
But the kids are, if they're in a situation where it is a safety concern, they're breaking the law, they're endangering themselves, those are the situations.
If they're talking about like another group that has nothing to do with kids from, like, who, that, like, there was this party, we didn't go to it. There was
Then no.
drinking, like,
But
okay, it's only like.
say your youth goes to the party and they're
Yeah.
talking about it,
Yeah.
that's gonna be a little
Yeah.
different, but you've gotta use a little reason too, and, it's a level. But I'm also saying, don't brush things under the rug, but I mean, most of you in this group know what I'm talking about
So
here.
Michelle, if it's something that we've called the parent about, we still write a report?
Yes. Yes,
That is
if it
feedback.
does go to the parent, yes, you do need to write down an incident report, even though we would consider it complete, and you've already taken care of it, but we do wanna have a record of it. But again, it doesn't need to be heavily detailed. That there's a level of trust and confidentiality that you as a small group leader have, but we also, in the office, need something, yes, I'm sorry.
So, no problem, you're talking. So I'm gonna bring two things, right, so I'm gonna ask you if you can make a piece of paper that has some black and white examples, despite the fact that we're talking about gray areas.
Yeah.
I mean, like, saying things like, hey, if someone is mentioning suicide, I mean, some of them are grossly obvious to people who
Yeah.
get it. And I'm gonna tell you that I'm actually in the category of someone who sometimes doesn't get it. And so I need what is painfully obvious to somebody else to be written down a little bit more so that when I hear it, I'll go, that's one.
Yeah.
And I'm also gonna say that based on someone who had an entire group of 7th grade, almost completely innocent girls last year. Okay, so like, I mean, I'm racking my brain to even come close to something that would have.
Things
Yeah.
like drinking, drugs, sexting.
Yep.
Yep,
That was
and I mean, those are the
drugs.
ones that I'm thinking
So
of.
that's the theme. Last year, I will say that was the biggest thing that popped up.
Things that.
Yes. If you could write that down so that everybody gets that and sees it, and then they can also go back to it and say, okay, let me see if this kind of sounds like those. Because when you're talking, I'm like, okay, so how far can I reach out? And I'm like, okay, last year at Thoreau, there was a situation where somebody supposedly tried to commit suicide. And the girls in my group didn't end up talking about this at all, but the moms in my life had ended up talking about it. And it was a lot of rumors and yes and no. and it didn't involve anybody in our group.
I see what you're saying, yeah, we don't wanna start documenting
Well,
all of the
yeah,
town of
and no, and I think
Vienna's.
some-
It's 100%
No,
where you're going.
No, but I,
Yeah.
had that person who was starring very sadly in this incident been a good friend of one of the girls in my group. And if that was something that we ended up talking a lot about, that sounds like that might be something that you would say, is this a document? Hey, you know, our group is talking a lot about this because this is going on in the community that they're a part of. Is that the kind of thing?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly,
okay.
because the other thing too is it acts as a follow-up mechanism. So although I'm just kind of the paper keeper for you all, it's just kind of a reminder to you, oh, that did happen in a small group 4 months ago, I should follow up. Or maybe it's not a big deal and I'm gonna let it go, but yes. But yes, I think a example sheet would be really useful, because you're right, I don't wanna start.
Something else. I'm gonna use the word hazing, they're not gonna call it hazing, but as our kids are starting to join sports and different things and different organizations, that's some of the stuff that might come up when they're talking about rituals or like sleepovers,
Initiation.
lock-ins, initiation,
Yeah.
like things. That might be some of the stuff that.
So Maddie will produce this,
Maddie.
Thanks, Maddie.
Now, this doesn't happen with my boys.
No way.
Let's
So
not
I'm
talk
gonna need
about
someone
it.
to help me with the boy, maybe examples, I don't know, I mean, that's definitely.
I have one that I'm just not exactly sure which camp, for example, when it's, like deceitful. Like I heard that somebody was not telling their parents, but they were gonna go and do something, and it wasn't illegal, it was something that I'd be upset if my daughter was doing it. You know, going someplace where they,
Without permission.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Lying
some of
about
the
where they're
other
going.
details,
Or,
yeah.
not telling.
Going to Tyson's Mall to meet boys,
Mhm.
and.
When
I
they
think
had
that's
said
the
that
kind
they
of
were
thing
going
to
to do
me.
something else.
Yeah, and they, you know, the rest of the group, they're all chatting about it, cause that's a cool thing to do, but I'd wanna know that as a parent. And
So
is
in that one,
is
I would not say definitely not an incident report on that one, but that's one where you definitely are encouraging that youth. And I would,
Right.
I mean, I'm thinking of as a perfect example of my small group leader, who is Amy Feather, and she would have been on our case. Day after day after day, did you follow the parent, did you follow the parent, did you follow, until.
But she wouldn't
have
But
called her
she
parent.
would not have, but
Because
she
that's
would.
breaking confidentiality.
Yes,
Because
and that's
And it's
exactly
not,
why I was
they're
really.
not
Mhm.
they're not in danger.
But if the
Tyson's
boys they were
Mall,
meeting were over 18 or 21.
Well, there you go.
Or
That's
they're still
illegal.
illegal, or they're doing something
Right,
like
but
that,
that's
then
illegal.
you.
But I think no. Anything else?
Start nagging, Kelly. Start nagging.
I'm telling you.
Now, and you can say, now that we're in 9th grade, I'm gonna be a little bit more.
What else was I supposed to do?
You gotta tee me up.
Well, I did just tee you up. Amy Feather would have communicated after communicated after communicated to me.
Fire around.
Great.
And now.
Live from Jennifer.
Again. Any help?
Why isn't she being a small group leader again?
HCD, Westfield was gonna be.
Alright. So we are not watching Men in Black, sorry. So.
The best of the best of the best, sir.
Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, there you go. So, what I'm here to talk to you guys about is Realm as a communication tool in student ministries. And the child protection policy says you're not supposed to text your students. I'm just the messenger telling you that's in the policy.
I'm here to be, you know.
So if you've got an issue with that, this is your conversation. The bottom line,
It
Yeah,
changed
2 years ago.
20,
So,
But there's an age difference, isn't there? That it's okay for high school students, but not middle school and below.
So originally last year, this was kind of where, because of all of the changes, don't because of all of the changes that we had within staffing last year, this was a change that was in the policy and should have been implemented. But it wasn't until that we were willing to die on at that point.
It was somewhat communicated.
And it was communicated, but to your point, it was kind of like, well, maybe we can let the upper grades, like the seniors and the juniors, just kind of get out of the program, still do the texting, that's what's working, make sure you have 2 adults. And then we would start kind of working through different modes of communication with our younger grades. This year now, we really, I mean, we need to, I mean, and this is something that we've discussed as staff, it's not changing. I mean, we're still gonna keep it in the policy. We didn't make any changes from the year that it was published in 2018. So we really do need to
Is this the right forum to ask questions about why that decision is
It
made,
is,
or
but I'm gonna let Melissa finish her
Yeah.
spiel, and then you
Okay.
can.
I was gonna say, yeah, and so the reality is that, and I'm here saying, it's in the child protection policy. I'm not here to argue the merits. What I am here to give you is an option for how you can communicate with your students. And the Realm Connect app is that tool. There is a functionality in the Realm app called the chat function that will allow you to have a conversation with your group. Now, I understand that they're all gonna say, well, I'm not downloading the Realm app. I'm going to say to you that I know there are groups who are successfully using this because their leaders have said, this is how we're communicating. And I'm not gonna value judgment either way around. That's just the way it is. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how this works. Okay. Which is, hold on just a minute. I clear something.
Wendy, I think we've done it.
So.
You and I have chatted?
Yes, but you can do it through, she'll show you, but we've
Alright.
done it. It's really easy.
It is.
Spoken by a 30-year-old.
I'm
He's
one of the least
28.
tech savvy people in the world.
Between the 2 of us, we're the least.
Yeah, I don't have Facebook, I don't have any of these.
All right,
Yeah.
this is my iPhone. Right here. Right here,
That's fancy.
an hour ago, Michelle Bull, these are my 2 girls, for those who don't know. This is Hillary, she's a volunteer. This is Erica, who goes to.
Just disappeared.
Sorry about that, look at that. So,
Chat.
that's my Erica. Anyway, so this is Realm Connect. I asked Michelle to send me a chat. I was like, do it sometime during the presentation. And because I'm leaving this, I'm gonna open it in just a second. It pops onto, if they have the Realm Connect app, it will pop onto their screen, just like a text message with the content, all right?
And that's also new though, right? That wasn't
Correct,
there
it is,
originally.
this is correct, and this was not available. So here's now, we're gonna go, so here's what I'm gonna do. All right, so, here's my Realm app. All my fun stuff in my Realm app. All right, see down here, I have this cute little red dot. That means I have a chat message, all right, as well, right here, sorry. There you
The
go,
bottom.
got it. So if I touch that, and then I pop over here to chat, don't worry about the inbox feature that's being shut down. Right there, I have a message from Michelle, and it says hello. So obviously, that's all she texted. So, oh, look at this. So we have a whole slew of them. You can send a chat message to one student, as long as you put another adult on it, or you can do it to your entire group. So I am the leader of the what is the Realm implementation group. And so I'm typing in, there it is, pops right up. And I'm gonna chat and say, same thing, and then I hit send. Anyone who's in the Realm implementation group will have that message pop. See, there you go, Nina's in the Realm implementation group.
And I get it on my watch.
So it works just like GroupMe, it works like WhatsApp or whatever the texting app du jour that they are downloading. It works just that particular way. So what we are encouraging is to use the Realm app as that text messaging feature. I'm not gonna get into the wherefores and what's about the legal reasons why we're asking you to do it. But I can I will answer a question, I might have an answer, I might not, and it might be something you need to talk to Michelle
No,
offline.
this is a for you question. If they
Yes.
don't have the app and you message them, is it coming to them in an email or do they just not get it?
Comes to them in an email.
Okay.
Yes, if they don't have the app. So,
Why
what,
wouldn't you just email them then?
because they don't read email.
Okay.
I mean, that much I do know.
So they're really not
So if
getting
it
it,
comes-
they're not getting
If
it
it
either.
comes in an email, they're not gonna.
Well, but I think that, but once you change their thought process, they might be. And so what I am gonna show you is the other piece is, if you look down here, for those of you who have the Realm Connect app on your phones, there's this more thing. Okay, I hate email, straight up can't stand it. So, I am over in my settings, and I can choose my notifications. So if I pick, I'll use my, oh look, somebody responded back. Not with Dina, I just got a little notification, see right here? Oh,
Tom-
Lisa Gibb,
Tom-
who's not even here.
Tom messaged me while you were talking.
Oh, well, there you go. So Lisa Gibb just responded as well, and see, it pops up, my app's open. It pops up just like a text message.
Actually, I can't get any connections.
Yeah, you and I
exactly.
need to talk
Exactly.
about passwords, right?
We changed
So,
the password.
let me change the passwords. So if I come over here to my Realm implementation team, this tells me what my content is on my news feed. It also tells me, more importantly, that it tells me my email notifications. As you can see, I get nothing. You can get them via email, you can get them via just the little red dot on the app. If you have an Android phone, it looks a little bit different, or a Windows phone, it looks a little bit different. See, Tom?
Android.
See, Tom? So that is the big, that's the big piece, that there is functionality that works to communicate with your group. So that's the first piece that I wanted, that's what I basically, what I wanted to show you, and answer those kinds of questions about. What am I doing?
So now, if you wanna ask someone to just.
Yes, I just sent that to you.
We've run that next.
So you can do one person, but.
So you wanna ask
You
one of
can-
the
you can
kids
do
to
it.
be, do,
It's just
a presentation for you.
Mhm.
Do you
I
pick
got
some
yours,
adult
Patty.
in the
There you go,
group,
Wendy.
and so every time you email, you carbon copy it to?
I didn't hear your question.
And that's a CPP question I don't know the answer to.
Okay.
Do you
So-
pick an adult in your group to always include
Always,
on?
yes, always.
So whenever you text, it goes to say Beth Webster.
I always say, Karen is always on whatever I do.
We
Okay.
can set up the group.
Like, so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but even if we're just emailing one student,
Yeah.
Karen and I are always on it.
all day.
So,
Nine.
yeah, so even if you're trying just to communicate with one person,
yeah.
Karen's always on mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how
Or
do
the,
we make
or the
a
parent.
group?
Yeah.
Your group exists.
No, it does not. I have 11th grade boys and what I'm.
Because we have not, some of the groups we have not turned on the chat feature, and I'm going downstairs to turn it on. I have not.
But what I'm saying is, how can we make an 11th grade group?
Just
Isn't it
all
one?
You have one.
boys and girls.
No?
Boys and
Combined.
girls.
That is a conversation for Tom about whether he, right? Here's the reason why we have, so your groups are all set up in your small groups.
Yeah.
And that's a conversation for Tom about, that, you know, he can come to me about building a group that's all 11th graders. Your parents are not in these groups. It is just supposed to be their leaders and their confidentiality. Here's why. If I'm an 11th grade girl and I need to ask my group to pray for me, I don't necessarily want Sally, my friend's mom, who doesn't know me, to know what my prayer situation is. That's why we encourage the kids to do that. This is not a one-way communication tool. You're still gonna have to email parents. This is to help build group conversation. With regards to a full 11th grade group, that you'll need to talk to Tom about what on where we stand with that, or you communicate to your 11th grade girl leaders, and they can communicate with the 11th grade
Well,
girls.
so, I mean, I've been holding events for, these kids, and basically, I go to the parents.
Mhm.
Getting a few parents who are saying it would be much better if you could just send it directly to my children, which obviously I'm not allowed to do on the CPP.
Via
So,
text.
Well, I'm just sending emails, but,
You can send an email if there's another adult.
As long as you have an
So
adult on
emails
there.
are still allowed with other adults.
Right?
So if your
Well,
other
what I'm-
leaders are
what
on
I'm-
that email.
so what I'm saying though is, the parents, whether they're for the sons or the daughters, they want me to communicate directly to their child. So I haven't, because I am just using the parents right now. But I think as they get older, it would be much easier, and
You
so.
don't need to have the parents on there. If
Yeah.
you are bringing them on these events though, they need, as part of the church, they need to have parental permission, which would be why you would want the parents on there.
I would still put parents as CC, but that way the kids actually see, and the parents don't accidentally forget to not.
And you could still email the parents and you could email those parents. You're a vetted volunteer. So you could email,
Well, I am, I mean,
Well,
I'm
that's what I'm saying.
emailing the parents.
but you could email all of the
But
11th
but it might
graders.
be, so my question is, can we get just an 11th
I don't
grade
understand it, you
round?
don't understand.
Just do an 11th grade round group where you can just,
Well, that's, she said.
And that's a conversation for Tom, because it's a
Okay, I'm done.
you're talking about a one-way communication tool, which is not really how we typically use Realm. Now, there is one small caveat in the room. Technically, you have to have parental permission if you are under the age of 13 to have an online account, all right? So, yes, if they go to set up their account, it's gonna ask, do you have your parents' permission? And then all you have to do is check a box, just like when your kid sets up their Facebook or their Instagram, even though they're not 13. But because we are going to we're encouraging our students to use Realm. So what we are going to ask is that the parents of our 7th grade students will be receiving, and this is not, you all are just being brought into the conversation so you're aware. You have no responsibility in this unless you're the parent of a 12-year-old, of someone who is in 7th grade. Parents are gonna be asked to just sign a release that says, I'm okay with my child having a Realm account and a Realm login. If I don't have this file on form, I'll shut the child's account down, because I need to know that their parents, I wanna make sure their parents are okay, that they are using the Realm platform. We're gonna encourage parents to be with their kids. I'll tell you, when my kids set up accounts when they were 12 and 13, part of the rule in my house, I had to know your login and your password. And that's where we were as parents. I'm not saying that every parent is there, but that's where we were as parents. We're encouraging our parents to know that we're using this responsibly, much like they do in school when they have to post various blog posts and things along those lines. But that is the one piece that we will be communicating to our parents of our new 7th grade students. And we just want you guys to be aware, if those of you, if you want to see the form, I know you have a 7th grader. You guys,
I can fill it
are
out.
you guys, you have a 7th grader too now?
Yeah.
That's right, so,
Can I fill it out? That way I don't have to do anything.
yeah, if you fill it out, that's great, that's perfect. The biggest thing that they'll need to know is that everyone who has a Realm account has to have a unique login. So if you're logged in as melissa@gmail.com, you cannot set up your child's Realm login as melissa@gmail.com. They have to have their own email. You can use their FCPS email, because I know a lot of them have that. The last piece is something that we're going to ask you all to do, is Tom and Leah, first of all, I'm excited that they're here, and I'm excited that the first conversation that I had with Tom was, Melissa, how do I find out where all of our high school students go to school? I want to be able to support them in their endeavors, whether it's art or sports or whatever. And I practically jumped for joy when he asked that question. So that means I need a little help from you. Most of you who are evening leaders are going to be given a printed roster of what we have on file for your students. We're going to ask you to just have your kids take a look at it and say, no, I don't go to Thoreau Middle School. Until yesterday, PJ still went to Thoreau Middle School. Outstanding. So
He's in 11th grade.
Yes, he's in that. So as you can see, and that's a function of the transition that we've been dealing with. So we're gonna ask you to verify that we have the right email addresses, the right cell phone numbers for
I
those
have an idea
students.
too, if the kids, if we're encouraging the kids to get the account, like to, actually log in, they can change that. Like you, we have you, there's somebody in our group, Nicole, she's listed as being at Thoreau. Like, look at that, you go to middle school still, let's see, you wanna change it, But like,
And however, and if, I think that's great, if, what I'm saying is, I'm lowering the bar pretty low. So, I wanna lower the bar pretty low. We have a mechanism, we have staff in place who are willing to make sure all of their account records are updated. But to help Tom and Leah develop those relationships outside of church, what we're gonna ask is if you can help us collect some information and then, hand the sheet, and we're doing it the old fashioned way. If they don't do it themselves, hand them to Tom and Leah, and magically we will get them fixed.
A question to kind of piggyback off of what Nina said, because I think you used the word that I think I heard, encourage them to download. Can we, like, night one or day one say, hey, this is how we're gonna communicate. I want you to take out your phone. I want you to download the app.
You'll crash the Wi-Fi at the church.
That's true, maybe we should stagger that on levels of the building.
Here's the thing though, you all will be none of you will be in the basement. You will be on the first, second, and third floor, where most of them have cellular service. So if they aren't on the Wi-Fi, they will, yes, absolutely. The groups that I know that are doing it, their leader said, this is how we're communicating. You have to download this, you have to download this app. I mean, that's, and let's do it together. Again, it just depends on, that particular piece. And, Michelle can get you the where fors and what fors and that kind of thing, but, if you have.
Because we did the exact same thing, and they just looked at us. And I was being pretty forceful, like, no, this is the way you're supposed to communicate, they just looked at me. Like I had 10 heads, and I'm like, I'm not gonna follow.
But maybe that's because they don't remember your name.
Well, that's true.
They didn't know you were gonna stick around, so, but.
They weren't sure if you were serious.
Are you real?
So, I'm here to help, I'm here to answer the questions as best I can from a realm and database perspective. I think it's a really great tool. I think I get it. I've had middle and high school students and, survived and came out the other side. It's one of those things where, if there's questions, if parents have questions, those kind of things, I'll answer the technical piece the best that I can. But sometimes with like Steve's question, those are things that I'm gonna have to kick to ministry, because you're talking about ministry level questions, and I'm just the technical piece on that. All right. It's all that I have.
Any other questions?
I really don't know if this is.
Like, it's 8:30, do we wanna, if we have.
I'll just submit that I question whether we're meeting the students where they are by requiring the use of a tool they don't want to use. And I don't know whether that's really the way to actually reach them. And one of the things that we try to do is reach those on the fringes. You're not gonna get the fringes by making a tool. We have enough trouble mandating tools in corporate environments where people know how to use them, and they get paid to show up. So I think that if there's a legality part of this, then I get it. I will freely admit to those of you in the room that don't know, I wrote the electronic communication part of the communication policy when I was the chair. So the intent at that time was to govern usage of various mechanisms so that we can enable communications with the kids. And what it seems like we're doing now is not enabling, but legislating. And so if we have a legal requirement to do that, I get it. But at some point, I would like to understand in a little more depth how we got from where we started to where we are now. Because we're a ministry and we're trying to reach them. If we're trying to reach them, reaching them on our terms isn't gonna work as well as reaching them on theirs. And so I'll leave it at that. I don't wanna take anybody any more than this time. So, but that's where my head is in terms of thinking about this.
I think it's valid.
And
Yeah.
being, taking over for Scott, I agree with what he just said.
You had, for those who don't know, you had two former CYPC chairs,
And the co-chair.
And the co-chair, that's right, I forgot, because you were ahead of me.
Right, and like I said, I think that's the whys and wherefores, and what I'm here with the realm piece is to say, I hear you, and I'm just saying, this is.
You don't get to say, you have the policy to work with, I get that. This is
Yeah,
the policy.
well, what I'm saying is here is something that meets the
No,
policy
understood.
needs, so, right, and
Understood.
I know
Totally
that
get
there's
it.
been some conversation, and, you know, that's a kickback up the food chain, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think after Sunday's training, I don't know how many student ministry volunteers you guys have signed up for that, but I think after we do this again there, then maybe we'll just have to discuss it more if we feel that we need to discuss text messaging versus Realm usage versus WhatsApp
I think
more.
it's about intent.
But I agree.
Before we talk about the technology, what's the goal we're trying to solve for? And let's figure out what that actually means with technology.
And
We
why-
throw technology around as the thing that's driving, it's not, that's not the purpose here. Let's figure out the problems and solve it.
Why was Realm safer? Is it because you all would have the record?
We have more control over it, we have the record, whereas with text messaging, we don't, it disappears, if it's an iMessage to an iMessage, there's no record of that unless you're gonna spend astronomical money and, you know, try to extract it from a cloud, if it's even on the cloud. I think, I'll leave it at this, I do think there's a benefit, and Melissa touched on this, to building community and using the tool with Realm. I mean, if you think about it, text messaging on their phone and text messaging it on Realm, it looks and feels the same. I understand we're having to ask them to download another app, we're asking them to go through another step, and to your point about the fringes, that does make it really difficult when you just wanna grab them and be like, come be part of the youth program, and you don't wanna have to but first do this. I get that, but at the same point, I think we are finally, and it's been an uphill battle for us even with Realm, even getting our staff to want to use it, and now we're finally at that point. And it's a really great tool, and if we can use it for a lot of communications within the church, that's a blessing, to be able to get them involved there. Then they're gonna also have, if they're using the Realm app, then that also spits them out into other groups, and they might be using that, and they might be looking at the VPC church group that comes through.
I don't disagree with that.
So I think there are
because
benefits, but I hear you.
We're not talking about the benefits, we're talking about ruling out other forms of communication. And I think that's a very different conversation.
But yes, there is legalities behind it for sure,
And I
in
think,
this decision.
we probably need to talk about it more, because I know, like, our girls get so many text messages that they probably aren't gonna do another step. Like, if they can't just respond right instantly, like, that they have to go through the app. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they download the app once, if I
Yeah,
understand
but
right.
but I
And
can't,
then
like.
they receive it and then they respond, it's.
You can respond instantly.
You can respond right on your screen.
Yeah,
That's what I heard them say.
Yeah, you just have to, you open it like a text message and
And
respond,
that
yes.
is a new feature, so when we were trying to implement this last year,
Yeah, there's no.
that
way.
wasn't there.
It wasn't there last year.
There wasn't, it just
Okay.
didn't make sense.
Yeah, okay.
Now, it's just like a text message.
It's fine.
It's like a WhatsApp, like a chat.
Yeah,
It's basically Realm's app answered a groupie. I mean, to be honest with you, it's Realm's app answered a groupie.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you've got a teen son, is he involved in school at anything that the school has to communicate to whole groups? Like, so what are they using? Are they using band?
I can't remember what they used, to be honest with you.
Okay, cause I was gonna say, whether I like it or not, this situation sounds very similar to how chorus teachers and school coaches and other
Dance teams.
adults, dance team, how is dance team communicating
It
with
is
the
a band.
students, okay? So this isn't something that is unheard of to high school students or middle school students who are involved heavily in an extracurricular activity that communicates directly to them. Now, that being said, I'm on my 4th kid in the student ministry, and I've only got 1 kid who meets that profile. We, as a youth group, underground, tend to pick up the kids who aren't heavily involved in other things, because if they are heavily involved in other things, they can't be heavily involved here. I know, I'm just being honest here.
Right.
So whether the kids who are here right now have familiarity with other similar ones or are using them is subject to discussion. If you're a kid who's on the dance team, who's getting messages daily about where your next tournament is or competition, through band and you're used to chatting with your other friends on the dance team, this is an easy switch over. If you're not that kid, or if you're, we got a lot of kids who actually don't have very many friends, some of my boys are some of them, and they're not even texting with other people. And then you got people who are texting everywhere. So we've got, I like what Scott's question is about, what is our intent and how are we going to, and what do the kids need and how do we build community? It's gonna continue to be a question.
Oh yeah, we thank you guys for the feedback. We'd love to continue the conversation, but to honor your time, we're gonna continue it. Thank you.
Thanks for having
I do. I have children.
Alright,
I have
we're
4.
gonna, go into just talking about a little bit, I know not everybody's involved in, actually I don't think anybody's involved in AM and PM, I may be wrong about that. But we are gonna just cover the breakdown of what the schedule and the format's gonna look like, because there have been a few changes from what it's been in the past. So to cover AM, can I just have you raise your hand if you are an AM group leader or substitute? Yeah. I'll go ahead and give you a book. All of your names may not be on this. If there are any missing pieces, we will fix it, but right now, here are the assignments we have for group leaders, and this shouldn't come as a surprise really to anybody, I don't think.
Can you shake your arm so I can see?
All right. Oh. So I don't know you on this list, but I will.
So where there are blanks, you look actively recruiting?
Yes, so where there are blank spots on this schedule, we are.
Stephanie's moving up.
Sorry.
Stephanie's moving up. Stephanie Shaw?
I suppose so.
That's, okay, because last year Stephanie was working with the 7th grade girls.
Okay, we can recheck that.
Okay, yeah, just go ahead.
Yeah.
I might have been my mistake when I was like.
So just put a little star.
Yeah, we're mapping it out still. Okay, so the breakdown of the schedule you actually have on the sheet that Tom gave out. But something that's different from the past, for those of you who have been involved, is we're not gonna have a teaching time. It's going to be eat and greet. We're gonna just have an intro, see what they've been up to that week. And then, do highs and lows, do announcements. The girls are going to be meeting in the bookstore, the old bookstore, and the guys are going to meet in the wing room of the Great Hall. And then
does that breakup start at the small group portion, or is that going on
Right
the
away.
whole time?
right away, all the girls will go to the bookstore, all the guys will go in AM
So there'll
to,
be food in both places.
yes, there will be snacks.
They're gonna ask.
That's actually the first thing on my list that I didn't say was snacks. Yes, we will have snacks there. And from after we do the eat and greet and announcements, then everyone will break up into their smaller groups. Girls will be going to preschool rooms, which we're still working on, and guys will be staying within the wing room, it sounds like, but we'll keep you posted if that changes. So we are using, you all heard Melissa, I'm not gonna rehash this about God's big story, but what I'm hoping to do in being a resource for you guys is I'm gonna be going through the curriculum to hopefully help. There's a lot packed in there, it's a lot of good stuff, and I just wanna be a resource to help you guys maybe sift through some of it and kind of find the major things we want to focus on, because there's so many things that each lesson presents. But what I would ask, and you may have already done this in the past, but I'm new, so this is what I'm asking, is just some weekly preparation expectations for the AM leaders is to read through the material. I'm gonna be sending out an email that will hopefully help, like I said, to sift through some of it and maybe focus in a little bit on certain aspects of it. And I'm really asking that you devote yourself to prayer for this time. That is going to be key. And if you already do that, thank you so much. God is hearing you. And if you don't, then this is a great time to start, because you can't do it without Him. I cannot do a single thing without Him. And He works through our prayers. So please make that a practice as you're preparing every week to be in prayer for God to give you wisdom and to meet the students where they are, like we talked about. And so the main goals of this time, it's a short time. You know, this is not 35 minutes in a small group. Really will probably fly by.
Just curious, at the All-In, they announced that Sunday school class, that learning community classes would be ending at 10:50.
Yeah, we get told.
Have you talked to the
We're-
youth choir director about that, who's planning?
Yeah,
I know you got it in with that.
No, there's things that we're still working through and communication that we'll be having, I'm sure, so yeah.
Okay, because I was just, as somebody who's thought that choir is starting at 11, if Sunday school ends at 11, choir can't start at 11.
True, yeah, that's good to know. Okay. Yeah, well, we will definitely take that into account. So the main thing, I had 3 goals. Y'all, I never do this, but you know how they're like 3 Ps or whatever. I did that this time. And because as I was preparing, the things that stuck out to me were, and this could apply for PM as well. So just as you're leading a small group, is presence. As a leader, I have a really hard time being present. I could be looking directly at you and you're talking to me and I'm like, and what I'm thinking about is the grocery list I've got to build, you know? In all honesty, like my mind is going a million miles a minute. And so what we need to be striving for with the students is to be fully present. So we're not just listening to them, we're listening to the Holy Spirit. Because like I've had these experiences recently. I met with a student, the place I just came from, and it was awesome because like in that moment as she was talking, I wanted to do something, I wanted to correct, I wanted to say something with what she was sharing, and I sensed God being like, that's not the time for that. And it was in that moment, you know, I'm really thinking I wouldn't have thought of that on my own, you know? So as present as we can possibly be, then we're not thinking, oh, I've got to rush through ABC, the curriculum, or whatever. We want to follow the curriculum, but we also want to be so engaged to not miss what God is drawing out of these students. So presence is huge, to listen and to ask really good questions. Proverbs 25 says, the purpose in a man's heart is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out. And I would love if we would view our role as leaders is to be that person that draws it out, not just to give them information. We can do that all day long. They could go read a book. You know, like we have resources to learn information. We want to help self-discovery. Not only self-discovery, but we want to enable them, hopefully, to be hearing from the Lord himself. So what kind of questions are you asking instead of saying, well, that's not the way to think about it? Instead of saying, well, why do you think you feel that way? And, you know, just things like that. So we can talk about that more later. So presence is the first thing. Second thing is I would ask you would be willing to make it personal with them, because it's very powerful to see how God has provided for you and not just to say God provides. That's true. He absolutely does. But when I tell you about the time in college that my bank account was low and I went to the mailbox and someone from my parents' church had sent me a check that very day, that I was like, what am I gonna do? You know, it means the truth is true. Like that, I mean, you know what I mean? Like God, it's in my life, it's in your life, and I think the students really need that. They don't need you to just say God provides. They need you to say, look what he did. Tell his deeds, proclaim it. So presence, make it personal, and then like Tom said, the patience aspect of it is huge. Because if you're anything like me, I want to seal the deal. I want them to get it today, and we're on to the next thing. It may take them 10 years to get it, but the seed you planted was not for nothing. So in these settings, to just be willing to let God do his work, to just rest, you've prepared, you have prayed, and then to just let God do it. Not feel like you have to drill it, unless he leads you to drill it. I don't know what he's going to tell you to do, but anyways, that's the general breakdown of AM. We'll continue communication, and any quick questions?
So just say, to be clear, you actually have 5 Ps.
Do you have really?
Yes, you had prepare and
Presence,
pray.
personal,
Oh.
patience, prepare, and pray.
No, I didn't
And
even
like
need to do
the
it.
pray is the last one, because we're gonna need all the prayers we can get.
Amen. But it's so encouraging, just like,
Yeah.
we just know he hears. We ask according to his will, he hears, and we know we have what we ask for. So,
Cool.
thank you for pointing that out, I
Five
didn't
keys,
even
I like
notice.
it. Thank you for listening.
Yes.
There we go.
All right, now we're gonna move to PM.
Yes. Well, thank you, Liam. So, just so it's clear, if you guys have questions about AM, he is the point person. Okay? I will, of course, I'm the only one available to talk at that moment, because we're on the same page. I'll address it, but bigger questions, deeper questions, go to Liam.
PM leaders, can you raise your hand? Just wanna make sure I have it right.
Man, if you guys, after that, I don't know who doesn't want to work in AM. So, you know, if any of the PM volunteers are like, yeah, I'm convinced, I want to work for AM as well, let us know. Double duty. So, PM is where there's a bit of change. I think most of you guys have seen the schedule. If you haven't, it's here on the bottom. You guys got this, right? So with PM, we're reducing hang time, just because we think that can be very alienating. So it's really just a buffer to get people there together and let the late people not feel so bad. And then we'll jump right into announcements, and then we'll have a time of praise. And then, you know, that youth band will be leading that. And then we'll have, at the first week of every month, a prayer. So I'll teach a prayer, right? A prayer of confession. So in my mind, no, look, let me just
No, that's
finish.
sorry.
You're done, Tom.
Leah's like, oh, you're like, you're done.
The Lord is
So we're going to be looking at Exodus throughout this fall. And so there's going to be a month where we're going to look at idolatry, focusing or drawing from Exodus 32, the golden calf. So I'm thinking is, you know what we're going to teach our students? A prayer of confession, right? And how to confess our sin in prayer. And we'll do that first month. And in small groups, you'll have the opportunity to practice it. Right? The reason why we're teaching prayer is because none of us are born with that language of prayer. I think we are, but we don't know, and it helps for somebody to verbalize it and teach it. And that's what I love about our worship and our liturgy. We have these, you know, mechanisms that allow us to learn how to pray. But when you do it in this environment as well, then again, they're getting that additional exposure, and that's really helpful. And so it's only going to be like 5 minutes, and we'll take some time to teach that, and then hopefully we'll practice that every week in the small groups. So for a large group teaching, and this is going, right, everything that we're doing is filtered through the lens of our vision and our ministry components. And so a big thing that we want to make sure our students leave with through their time in student ministries, how do I read the Bible? Do I know the Bible? That's important. That's what we're doing using the Gospel Project. That's why we're going to be looking at the Bible. And that's going to be talking about what's on the news and how does God kind of play into that necessarily, but what does God have to say? Many people are like, oh, we need to, and even me, I think I fall into this trap that we need to be relevant. And what relevance is, we often think is addressing this particular issue, or whether it be gender identity or academics or whatnot. But that's just a symptom. That's only the surface level. What we want to get at is the most relevant thing, which is to know God. Right? If you know God, and if we know how to read the Bible, which is God's word, his inspired word to us, then these issues we can deal with. When suffering comes, we can deal with it. But if we don't have that foundation in the word, when hard stuff happens, we will crumble. And so a big emphasis for the large group teaching is, what does God's word have to say? And so that's why we're going to go through Exodus, as well because the adults will be going through Exodus. Or not just the adults, sorry, it's not just adults. the church as a whole will be going through Exodus during the 9 o'clock and 11:10 worship service. And so it's not going to be the same. We're not going to do the same verses, same passages, but we're going to look at Exodus together. Right? So like I have the advantage to say, hey, we're going to look at Exodus 32 for 4 weeks. Well, they might not be able to do that for the worship service. So we'll go in depth where I think it's a little more relevant or a little more significant. And so that's what the large group teaching is about. And then small group discussions. So I'll give questions that relate to the message, which you guys can use to discuss. But for the most part, I'd encourage you guys to say, hey, what did you guys think? What questions do you have? And then talk about highs and lows and get to know the students in your small group. We're not gonna, again, change the small groups. We're just gonna continue. So, you had 10th graders. You have 10th graders now. You're gonna keep them. Right? It's not like we're assigning new small groups to the leaders because we value that. We value that you walk with them from middle school to their graduation. And for middle school students, we'll provide a game because we all know it's hard for them to sit still and talk for a whole hour. So we'll have something that will take up 20 to 30 minutes. And so I think we'll do the game first.
Yeah, I
and
think
then,
that's right.
yeah.
Because otherwise, I can tell you, they will get through the highs and lows as quickly as possible so they can play the game.
Yep.
If they're the boys, and the girls, I don't know what they're doing. Sometimes they're
Yes.
We have 2 sons and girls.
And I'm not opposed to if the game is fun, if the game is going well, that they play it throughout. I'm not opposed to it because I think it creates a certain safety. Like, hey, it's okay. Like, we don't have to do this. It's like, that patience, that safety aspect. Hey, we're having a good time. Okay, that's great. Let's build that community because at least they're getting some kind of gospel exposure. So that's the PM and is that your question?
Yeah, so we don't have the book because you'll give us the questions.
Yes.
So in preparation, so are we like off the hook for any preparation?
Yeah, I'll give you the questions and
I hate coming unprepared.
Wait a
minute.
Oh, sorry, that's a good question. So I will give you the lesson plan or what I'm gonna be talking about, big points, 2 to 3 weeks before with the questions so you can look at it. You can read the passage, you can look at it, prepare.
Ooh, crap.
And again, if you guys have questions on the passage too, feel free to ask me. If you're like, well, Tom, I don't get this, or I don't know if I believe this, or whatever it is, feel free to let me know, and we can work through those questions. And having 2 to 3 weeks allows me to, again, do the research I need if I don't have a good enough answer.
Or maybe even we could prepare additional questions.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
when I have 1 or 2, in case we get short answers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
From personal experience, that requires starting your planning before 10 p.m. on Saturday night.
Just saying.
Just a guess.
Yes. Any other questions? Again, I know it's late, and we're just asking you guys to stick with us for a little longer. But if you have questions outside of this time, please feel free to ask.
The next few things will not take that long. I do want to make you aware of some things. Some of you are already signed up for 15-minute check-ins. Raise your hand if you are signed up for that already. Ooh, okay, so I will be sending out emails to schedule a monthly 15-minute check-in. It'll either be happening, you can choose the time after AM on Sundays or right before or after PM. And basically, it's just an opportunity for me to connect with the lady leaders and Tom with the guy leaders to just kind of see how your group is going, how you're doing, if there's any way we can be helping you, and really how we can be praying for your group, you and your group. So I'll send that out monthly. I will follow up if I don't get a schedule from you, just because this is going to be so important for our unity as a team and for us to be able to be super aware of what's going on with the students to know how to move forward. So if you haven't signed up, very soon I will send out a link to register for that. Okay, just some things, because you don't know us, you don't know the discussions we've been having. We just want you to know what to expect from us, at least what we have right now. Practically, you're gonna be getting a weekly email just to keep you posted on what's going on. I know you get a million emails, but we would ask that you would make a point to open it and to read it. We'll make it as brief as possible, but we just wanna maintain contact with you guys. And then
Is
for
it an email or a wrong post?
Oh, please send an email.
Mhm.
I'm really serious. I'm not reading your, I'd rather read the email on a screen this big, not on a screen
Yeah.
that
You can
big.
have your
No, it
post
comes to-
sent
it
to your,
comes to
you.
anyways.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, the first 2 sentences come to you in an email, and then you
And
have
it's
to go
like,
click the
click.
thing and
Oh,
open
no,
it.
no,
and
no,
then-
no,
you-
no.
they-
The
you
whole
can
thing
do
is
minutes, so it
email.
comes
You just
as
get
email.
a picture sometimes.
Anyways.
Yeah.
You just look at
To be determined, but yes, we will keep you posted on it.
Intervention.
Yeah.
Laying on the hands, it's all right, brother.
So,
Prayer.
the last thing, for AM, I'll be sending you, you know, the weekly emails. I'm gonna also try to be a couple weeks out, so y'all can be preparing on your own time for that. But one of the biggest things that we are striving to devote ourselves to is to pray for you guys. Please don't hesitate to send us something we could be praying about. What we'd ideally like to do is work it into our weekly rhythm to have times of prayer for the different grade levels and leaders. Because if you get nothing else from this meeting, just pray, be in the Word and pray, because that's when we're gonna see God do stuff. So, that's what we want to do with you guys and for you guys. And the last thing is, we printed out calendars. Would you mind just passing those around? These will also be posted in Realm, so you don't have to have this paper copy, but if you're a paper person, I like visual things in front of me. This is the next 4 months, so just the fall through December, of the events we have going on. You'll notice on Mondays and Wednesdays, we have hangouts here from 3 to 5. We would love, if anyone can, to come be part of that, just to get to hang with the students. But we have tried to not schedule those on days your school is out. So if you see one missing, that's why. But we have, I'm not gonna read it to you, but things that you may not be familiar with are, like September 13th is a Friday night. We're planning to have a jam session with the students who like music, who wanna come just in a non-threatening acoustic arena to just play music together, learn how to love the Lord through music and worship. Anybody who is musical in the room, you're more than welcome if you want to join. We love it. So there's, Tom said he would dance though.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
He said that, I heard it.
Yeah, I
I'm
would
not
dance.
doing that either. My wife left, she'll have to.
So these are, basically we have, we have fall kickoff. I didn't put open house, but it'll be the open house. You'll see when we do not have AM or PM for any reason. I will be updating these as we go if anything changes and keep you posted on that, but this is what we have as of now. Because it is a few minutes after 9, I'm gonna let y'all look over that, and if you have any questions, email us or text us or whatever.
I have one quick question.
Sure.
That occurred to me on the fall retreat.
Mhm.
Are the leads expected to go, or how many, we don't know necessarily how many leaders we need for that?
Yeah, we'll look at the
They want
documents. again.
everybody who can come to show
Yeah,
up.
but more the better.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, if you are leaders of 10th and 11th, you will run into that some of them are hesitant to come because the SAT's on that Saturday.
And Madison's homecoming is that weekend.
Yeah. So, it will be,
Yeah.
yeah.
Don't ask which boy in my house already asked not to go on retreat.
Yeah. So this retreat, yeah, we're gonna have some challenges in terms of
Yep.
attendance.
It's just-
But
Yep.
it is what it
Locked in
is.
for that weekend.
Yeah, yeah. We'll
And
be
you
more aware of
can
these
never
things.
capture everybody.
You can't.
Right, that's true.
But whoever comes, we're
Faithful
gonna
who you have.
Have a great time.
have a great time, absolutely. Maybe we'll finally get a full ultimate game.
Can't hope.
Yes.
Do you know what time the, SMP information meeting is by any chance on the 17th?
S&P information.
November.
Full number.
November 17th.
We will.
Typically they're 12:30.
Yeah, it's
About
usually
12.
right after second
Okay.
service.
So a lot of these events are like, hey, why don't you come in, like come to us. But a big part of what we want to do too is we want to go to them. And so we can't attend every recital, every sporting event. But as you guys leading small groups and recognize, hey, I think it would be very beneficial for this particular student who might be on the fringe, who might not have a lot of friends, that we have somewhat of a connection with. You're like, hey, Tom, Leah, you want to join me, or could you guys go and just be them, support them, and let us know, because that helps. Because really, it's really difficult for us to discern. We go this, but you guys will know better because you're responsible leaders. So we invite you to do that. Obviously, because Madison is the school closest to us, we would probably want to do something there. But yes, anyway, because I think that's important for them to see that, and we're not stuck to this building, but we're willing to go out to them as well. But just so that we're clear, it's not like we'll have the ability always to go every week, multiple times, but we're gonna do our best. So, any last questions, prayer requests?
As the mother of a 7th and 8th and a 10th grade boy, can we pray for some more leaders?
Yeah, thank you, that's exactly what I was gonna say. I'm seeing a lot of likes on our sheets.
Are you all gonna take a small group?
Seems like we'll have to. And yeah, and with AM, we might have to be a bit flexible about groups. Yes, I just say that you might have a bigger group than you expect.
We can take
more, yeah, like 11 and 12
Yeah,
boys.
we can take 11 and 12, that's fine.
I have one, we kind of enjoyed having the guys and the girls together in AM. Is there, I guess the push is to separate them now, I mean, I'm just.
Logistically speaking, with construction, we're doing the separation.
Oh, okay.
We don't want to add another element to the chaos.
Gotcha.
Once the underground is done, that's something we're gonna look at, and yeah, we value that cross-gender, cross-age interaction. So, hey, those in PM, be flexible. Right? Anything else? All right. So what I want to do, just real quickly, you guys know the names of your previous small school students. So just take 1 minute to just pray for them by name, and then I'll close out. Not out loud.